They say the mind never forgets. But when the walls trembled and the dust swallowed their cries, everyone who entered knew that some tragedies are carved into the earth forever. Today, you will hear the story of men who went underground, chasing a living, and never came back. The worst mine deaths ever, real faces, real pain, and the haunting lessons left behind. The morning was cold, a thin mist hugging the hills surrounding the small mining town of Blackstone. For generations, the men of this town had followed in the footsteps of their fathers, descending into the bowels of the earth to pull out coal that fueled a country far larger than their humble homes. Among them was Thomas Keene, a young father of two, whose hands bore the calluses of a lifetime of labor but whose eyes carried the quiet hope of a man determined to provide. That day, like countless others, he kissed his wife and children goodbye, unaware that this morning would mark the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt the world. As the miners descended into the mine, the air grew heavier with each step. The echo of picks and hammers bouncing off stone walls created a rhythm that had comforted these men for years. But today, the rhythm was different. A subtle, almost imperceptible vibration ran through the ground. Just the wind. Thomas reassured himself, though a chill ran down his spine. The foreman, Mr. Hartley, a man who had spent 3 decades in these tunnels, frowned as he noticed fissures forming in the walls. He called the workers together, issuing warnings, but the mine was old and expansive, and the pressure of extracting coal was relentless. Economic survival outweighed caution. Hours passed, and the crew went deeper, unaware that deep within the mine, pockets of methane gas had begun to accumulate. Lightning fast, invisible, and deadly, it was a trap waiting silently. When the first explosion tore through the mine, it was like the earth itself had screamed. Men were thrown across tunnels, dust filling lungs, hearts pounding in terror. Thomas shielded a young apprentice with his body, feeling the walls vibrate violently around them, the cries of his brothers in labor filling the claustrophobic darkness. In those moments, every man faced the raw, unfiltered terror of mortality. Families above ground heard only distant rumblings before silence fell, a silence heavier than stone. Rescue attempts began immediately, but the mine's instability made every step treacherous. Thomas's wife, Martha, waited by the shaft, clutching the last letter he had sent, praying, bargaining with a God she hadn't felt in years. The community pulled together, sending every able hand to help, but the mine's twisted corridors hid men from view. Days blurred into nights. Some miners were found, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. Others remained lost, swallowed by the darkness that had been their livelihood. The weight of grief was suffocating. Thomas, however, driven by hope and determination, refused to surrender. He believed he could find his friends, maybe even save lives, though the odds were slim. By the second week, the full scale of the disaster became apparent. 23 lives had been lost, families shattered, a community left questioning the cost of labor. Thomas had survived, rescued from a tunnel by a team of determined rescuers, but the mine had taken his closest friends. The faces of those who perished haunted him. James, the older mentor who taught him the craft. Little Ben, only 17, who had smiled every morning with boundless optimism. And countless others, now frozen in memory, their laughter and camaraderie forever silenced. The emotional toll was staggering. Yet it was the stories of their heroism, of men shielding one another, that began to give meaning to the tragedy. Even in the darkness, human courage shone bright. Investigations revealed what everyone had feared: negligence, unsafe conditions, and a lack of proper ventilation. Mining companies faced scrutiny, fines, and anger, but it was too late for those lost. The community held vigils, remembering not just the deaths but the lives that had shaped them. Thomas, scarred but resolute, became an advocate for miners' safety, speaking in towns and cities about the hidden dangers beneath the earth. He told of the friendship, the sacrifices, the courage displayed when every man faced the possibility of never seeing daylight again. And slowly, his story, and theirs, began to change the way people thought about the men who risked their lives for the coal that fueled the world. Years later, the mine stood abandoned, a silent monument to tragedy. But in the hearts of those who survived, the lessons remained vivid. Life is fragile, courage is measured in moments of fear, and the bonds of human kindness can shine brightest in the deepest darkness. Every time Thomas looked at his children, he remembered the faces he had lost and vowed that their sacrifices would not be forgotten. The worst mine deaths ever became a story not only of grief but of hope, resilience, and the enduring strength of the human spirit, a warning to all, and a testament that even when the earth swallows men whole, their stories remain alive, echoing in every heart that dares to remember.